2025 is just one day away at this point, and as we close the chapter on 2024, it's time to look to the future, especially for the Xenoblade Chronicles series. From the get-go, with everything we know, 2025 is shaping up to be a huge year for this series, perhaps its biggest yet. We've already got confirmation of a brand new game coming within the calendar year, and it's likely that we'll get even more Xenoblade news with Nintendo Switch 2 on the way. As we prepare to embark forwards on what will inevitably be an incredible year of gaming, let's take a look toward the horizon and check out what we might see for the Xenoblade Chronicles series in 2025. To kick things off, there's no better place to start than what we already know. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was just revealed a few months ago, and we've already had a ton to say about the game. Obviously, there's been millions of new fans of the series with Nintendo Switch, and likely 90% of this fanbase has yet to experience this incredible game. Now removed from the shackles of Wii U after 10 years, Xenoblade Chronicles X is entering the biggest stage of the series yet. Every game on Nintendo Switch has sold north of 1 million copies. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has sold over 2.7, likely 3 at this point, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has sold over 1.9 million copies. It's remarkable to say, but the series has sold 7.17 million units on Nintendo Switch as of the latest investors update this November. That's not even counting the sales of Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U and Xenoblade Chronicles on Wii and Xenoblade Chronicles 3D on 3DS. With such a big user base, obviously people are going to be interested in this game. And what does it have to offer if you're a new fan? Well, for one, this is the only game in the series not available on Nintendo Switch. You can play through Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 consecutively on the system right now, including all expansions with those games. However, X just hasn't been available. For one, it wasn't directly linked with Xenoblade Chronicles to begin with. However, it's likely that that could change, especially with new story content already confirmed. While we don't know the extent of this content yet, the tease has already involved the very end of the game where Lao wakes up on the beach. We know this takes place with the ending, and it's likely the answers that we've been waiting on for a decade are going to be revealed at last. Perhaps this is going to link Xenoblade Chronicles X to the other games, or even set up a sequel? There is so much to talk about and speculate on with this new story content in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, but we'll have much more on that really soon, so be sure to wait for that. Finally, and really the last thing that ties this release together, it's arguably the most unique game in the franchise when looking at 1, 2, and 3. There's a unique exploration focus that's not necessarily present in the mainline titles. Sure, there's an emphasis on scalable worlds and exploring, but X literally throws you in the mech and lets you explore different continents. Get in the robot, basically. Additionally, the sound team is different from the mainline titles. Renowned composer Hiroyuki Sawano composed the soundtrack long ago with many memorable tracks. Looking at you, Black Tar. Overall, we are so excited for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and it's more than enough to hold us over for 2025. However, it's very unlikely that both Monolith Soft and Nintendo are going to stop there. As you may know, Nintendo Switch has slowly been approaching the end of its lifespan. Currently, we're in the waiting period for Nintendo's next generation console to be revealed. Nintendo's already confirmed a couple of things about it. First, it's going to use Nintendo accounts present on Nintendo Switch. Secondly, we've already got confirmation that it will be able to play Nintendo Switch titles. Therefore, the Xenoblade series will be playable through backwards compatibility. And finally, we know that this system is set to be revealed by March 31st, 2025, the end of Nintendo's fiscal year. After the release of this video, it's entirely possible and, in my opinion, pretty likely that Nintendo is going to go ahead and reveal the unit in the next couple weeks. That's not to say that it's going to release here in January, but I wouldn't be surprised to get a look at the Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called here in a couple weeks. Now, you might be thinking, where does Xenoblade come in? If we're getting X Definitive Edition in March, why are we talking about Switch 2? That answer lies with backwards compatibility. Since the Nintendo Switch 2 will be able to play all of the games that were released on Switch, Xenoblade as a series is going to be fully playable on this new system. And therefore, like PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, it's pretty likely that we're going to see some games receive patches to both run better and look better on the new system. If you'll remember, there were a few interesting rumors around Gamescom surrounding Switch 2. Supposedly, Nintendo showed off the system to developers behind closed doors. And not only that, Nintendo showed Breath of the Wild running at 4K 60 FPS on hardware that would be similar to Switch 2. Obviously, there's no guarantee that any of the Xenoblade Chronicles games are going to get patches to run better, and we don't even know if Nintendo's going to do this. However, it makes too much sense with everything going on. Nintendo's going to have a user base of over 140 million users on Switch that they're hoping to transition to Switch 2. One way to do that, obviously, is with backwards compatibility so they don't lose the ability to play their games. You can entice users by making their games perform better and run better than ever before. The Xenoblade games on Nintendo Switch are pure technical marvels. It's honestly hard to believe some of them are able to run on the system. I look at Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 specifically, as those worlds are just so big. You can tell how much optimization was required to even make those games run as well as they did. There were barely any bugs or issues with them, however the resolution dipped drastically using dynamic res in many cases. Monolith knows how to work with the Switch and was able to make it happen. Beyond the Xenoblade series, Monolith Soft has arguably contributed to the two most important games on Nintendo Switch, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. If you've played both of these games, the DNA that runs through them is so clearly inspired and driven through Monolith in the Xenoblade series. Especially for Tears of the Kingdom, I still really am amazed that that game is able to run as well as it does on Nintendo Switch. It can only be described as a technical marvel. Now, why can we expect games to run better? Obviously the system's going to be better than Switch 1, but by how much? Since we don't have official components and can only go off of rumors and estimates, we're going to base off that, but as of now, Switch 2 is expected to have 12 gigabytes of RAM. That is 8 gigabytes more than Switch 1, which currently has 4. And for Switch 1, that's even more than Wii U had. As for the chipset, the Nintendo Switch 2 is expected to be powered by the Tegra T239. This is a custom chipset specifically built for Switch 2, unlike Nintendo Switch, which used the Tegra X1. Based on these current estimates and reports, it is expected right now that Nintendo Switch 2 will be 600% more powerful than Nintendo Switch. This sits it right in between PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox Series S. Think about that, 600% more powerful. Think about how much better the Xenoblade series can look on a system like this. While I think it's unrealistic to expect Nintendo to patch every single one of their first-party games for Switch 2 hardware, I do think their heavy hitters will receive updates. Monolith Soft Kyoto, which currently acts as mostly support for Nintendo's other internal studios, assisted in the creation of Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Splatoon 3, and of course Tears of the Kingdom. Due to the support studio's involvement in these heavy hitter titles, I really wouldn't be surprised if Monolith Kyoto is assisting in patching some of these games for Switch 2. And as a result, I really do think having the entire Xenoblade Chronicles series patched isn't that unrealistic. It's also worth noting that there might be some games that won't need a patch since they run at an uncapped frame rate. However, it's pretty likely that's going to be the case. Most of these games were incredibly optimized specifically for Nintendo Switch hardware, and the shackles must be released in order for these games to take advantage of the new hardware.
Let the shackles be released!
These are updates that we'll have to wait and see on. There's no guarantee that they happen, however, it's pretty likely we're going to see something related to Xenoblade in patches, even if it's just Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The Nintendo Switch 2 is going to want to bring older games into new light, and this is the perfect way to do so. Using DLSS, or Deep Learning Super Sampling, we're going to see insane frame rate increases across the board, and that could even mean 60 frame per second Xenoblade Chronicles games. Sign me up for that. And last but not least, to conclude our overview of 2025 for Xenoblade Chronicles, there is a chance we see Monolith Soft's next game relatively quickly, sometime in 2025. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is a port. Granted, it is enhanced, but it is a port. It's not a new game. We know that Tetsuya Takahashi and his team have been recently hiring for his next RPG, and you cannot convince me that it isn't Xenoblade Chronicles 4 after that ending in Future Redeemed. Since X Definitive Edition is releasing in 2025, it is incredibly unlikely that we will receive Xenoblade Chronicles 4 next year for numerous reasons. For one, it doesn't make much sense to release two major RPGs like that in just 1 year. Nintendo would much rather spread them out to gain maximum coverage across the years for fans. As a result, it is entirely possible that we will get Xenoblade 4 revealed with a 2026 release date. The Switch 2 presentation and the first few Nintendo Directs focused on it are going to be crucial for establishing what this hardware is capable of. All of Nintendo's internal studios were dead silent for 2024. The silence is obvious. They're building up for Switch 2 and their first new games for the system. This of course includes Monolith Soft, who's quickly become one of Nintendo's most important developers. With just how impressive and expansive the Xenoblade series has been on Nintendo Switch, it's the perfect opportunity to showcase what the Switch 2 hardware is capable of. I absolutely believe that whether at the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation or the first two Directs of the year, we will get a reveal for Xenoblade 4. It's worth noting that Nintendo has adopted a much shorter approach for marketing, often only revealing a game a few months before it's released. Xenoblade Chronicles X was revealed in October and it's already out in March. It's almost more likely that Nintendo's going to continue to follow this principle with Switch 2. However, the launch of the console is a big deal, and if they want to showcase some things from the future, Xenoblade Chronicles 4 is the perfect game to do so. Out of everything we've talked about today, this is the thing I'm least confident on. With X Definitive Edition coming next year, I'm not sure that we're going to get Xenoblade Chronicles 4 within the first 2 quarters of 2026. As a result, it wouldn't shock me if Nintendo held out to early 2026 to reveal the game for launch later that year. Regardless, I have to mention it because it's something that could happen. 2025 is shaping up to be a seriously amazing year, and again, it quite possibly could be the most important year for Xenoblade yet. As we discussed in a previous Beyond the Conduit episode, X has already gained so much traction, and it's approaching the biggest player base the series has seen yet. With critical and financial success, X, combined with potential patches for the previous Xenoblade titles on Switch, could chart forward a brand new future for the series after next year. We'll have to wait and see, but it's an incredibly exciting time to be a fan of Xenoblade Chronicles. And if you're not yet, there's never been a better time to jump in. Thanks so much for watching episode 4 of Beyond the Conduit as we overviewed what 2025 could look like for Xenoblade Chronicles. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let us know what you'd like to see in 2025 from both Monolith Soft and Nintendo. 2025 is shaping up to be an incredibly exciting year for us as well, with so much content planned. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Beyond the Conduit.